Hi, I'm Bruce Grace, Product Specialist here at Atlas Copco, and I want to give you 5 tips and tricks on how to help with operator influence when you're using the MicroTorque system. Let's take a look. Now, one common issue that we see with the MicroTorque system is that an operator will let go of the trigger before the tightening sequence is complete. I'll show you an example. Here I begin to tighten the screw, but I let go. And 2 things happen. 1, I get a not okay signal because the tightening process didn't complete. And 2, I've got a trigger lost error on the controller itself. Let's take a look at a way that we can fix this. Using the ToolsTalk MicroTorque software, there's a tab called Configurations. We can change the tool start trigger from hold to pulse. Save that in the controller. By changing from hold to pulse, now all I have to do is pull the trigger and tap it once and it'll run the entire tightening process. So if your operator is having trouble holding onto the trigger until the tightening sequence is complete, this is one trick for modifying that to help them. Tip number 2, rehit detection. Now if you're not measuring angle or clamp torque in your tightening step, the system can create faulty results by pulling the trigger after a screw has already been tightened. Let me give you an example. If I pull the trigger, the screw tightens and it hits a target torque. You can see that we hit the target torque of 6 centimeters. Now if I place the bit on the screw again, it's going to give me an okay result because it sees that the torque was met again. Now if you go into the ToolsTalk MicroTorque software, go to the controller tab, you can scroll down until you see a selection called Rehit, Tool Rehit Enabled. If we turn that on and save it in the controller, now the controller has the ability of detecting these types of errors. Let's take a look. Now if I try the same thing by setting the bit on an already tightened screw and I pull the trigger, I get a red light, a not okay signal, and an error message on the screen that says rehit detected. So if your operator is having trouble accidentally pulling the trigger after a screw has been tightened and it's creating false results, this is one way that you can get around that. Number 3, guiding light. Now if you're using the ETD-MT, which is the transducerized version of the handheld tool on the MicroTorque system, there's a light at the end. And I'm sure you've seen it flash already in this video, green and red, for not okay and okay tightening results. However, you can also set this light to be a guiding light when you're performing your tightening. Now the way you can do this is by going into the ToolsTalk MicroTorque software, going to the Configuration tab, selecting the tool you're using. Now this button on the back is not only a reverse button, you can use this button as several different configurations. The easiest way I've seen to do this is by using the hold function. So if we go to hold function and we select toggle guiding light and we save it in the controller. Now if I hold this button, which is a hold function, you can see that the guiding light actually turns on the tool. Now it's easier for operators in a dark space to see what they're doing when they're running a tightening. Number 4, custom controller screen. Now when an operator runs a tightening sequence, they're limited to the preset controller screen data selections. So here I ran a tightening and I can see my target torque was met, and I can scroll through some different menu options to see the step results, see the graph, things like that. However, if the operator needs to monitor more than one thing at a time and this controller is mounted somewhere where they can't reach it, you can set a custom controller view by the tightening program. In the ToolsTalk MicroTorque software, you can see a list of your tightening programs by selecting this tab, Manage a List over all P-sets. Then you'll double click on the tightening program that you want to create a custom screen for. And if you scroll down to the steps in the tightening process, you see something called Custom View. Under Custom View, you can set this custom view to have anywhere from 1 to 4 different fields. So for this example, let's set 4. In the first field, we're tracking torque. In the second field, let's say we want to track a step instead of general. Let's track the step angle. In the third field, let's monitor the P-set name and number. And in the fourth field, let's monitor another general step, like the controller date. Now when you're using a custom view, you do have to select the custom view on the screen by using the arrows. But as soon as I select that custom view on the screen, it'll stay there. Now when I run a tightening, I can see these custom views that I set. We can see the tracking torque, the angle, the P-set number and name, and the controller date on the custom view screen. So if your operator needs to see more than one thing on the controller screen, you can actually manipulate what you have them see under the custom view. Number 5, the last one, is managing access by setting up passwords in the MicroTorque controller. If you have an operator that's going through the controller and switching to screens you don't want them to see, or changing P-sets or creating P-sets on the controller itself, and you don't want them to have access to do that, you can set up to 3 passwords in the MicroTorque controller and limit the access by the password. In the Tools Talk MicroTorque software, under the Settings tab, you see you have 2 selections here, a setup for digital I/O and password. If we select password, you can see that you can set up to 3 user passwords. You can manipulate what the password is, and then select their access by the password. So if I want user number 1 to have a password of 1000, but I don't want him to be able to select the P-set, I would uncheck that box. And now if I save it to the controller, and user number 1 logs into the controller, he's not going to be able to select P-sets. So as an example, you could have user 1 as an operator, user 2 as an engineer, and user 3 as an operations manager. Each one is going to have different access to manipulate things on the controller. This has been 5 tips and tricks on how to help you manage operator influence on the MicroTorque system. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to an Atlas Copco representative. Thanks for watching.